The DC method for running encounters is the best and only way that you should ever run your random encounters. And if you can't tell, I'm totally kidding. Last week I did a video on the 10 biggest mistakes I see people do with random encounters. And for all of those, this is my solution for that. This is the way that I run it personally for myself. But it might not be the best system for you, which is why I have so many different levers and knobs and different things you can twist and change of this system to make it fit for you. I have shared this system with so many different people, and I'd love to see the different iterations of it that people use for themselves. Each one of us has something in Dungeons and Dragons that just is a little off or just feels a little off, and we just, that's what the rules say, and we have to do it. I'm here to present you with a lot of different options and tweaks out there to change them for your own table to have the most fun for you and your group. All right, let's get into this encounter system. The DC method for random encounters is a D12 system. Everybody loves D12s. We don't roll them enough. So random encounters, here's how it works. Whenever you want to see if there's a random encounter, all of the players get a D12 and the Dungeon Master gets a D12. All the players roll their D12 and look to see what the numbers are, while behind the screen, maybe, the Dungeon Master rolls their D12 and it's going to be a certain number. Whatever that Dungeon Master's number on that D12 is their number. If any of the players' number matches the Dungeon Master's number, random encounter. And as a cool little side bonus here, all of the encounter tables that I ever use are always D12 encounter tables. And I structure the encounter tables with a 1 being the worst possible thing on the encounter table and a 12 being usually a good thing. Like, what's the best thing that can happen? It's a positive thing that happens versus a bad thing. Again, I went over in the video that'll be down in the description why not to have encounters only be bad things, but that's that video. And pay attention, because you'll also see why it's really cool to have a D12 encounter table for this, with bad things on the lower end towards the 1, 2, 3, 4 range. Because a really cool thing you can do with D12 encounter tables with this D12 system is whatever player matched you. Again, let's say there's 4 players rolling and they got a 4, you got a 4. So the player that rolled the 4 matched you. They have no idea who matched you, but that number that was matched is the number for the encounter table. Super smooth. Of course, if you don't want to do that, you could roll another D12, or if you have a D20 random encounter table or a D100 random encounter table, sure, just the matching moment is what triggers it. But I really like that my D12 encounter tables, I have a 4. I know it could be this thing on the encounter table. Did anybody match me? Oh, they did. Here we go. You know what I'm saying? And another really cool thing is the players don't actually know who matched you, because if I see that it's a 4 and something happens, I can have it happen to that person who matched me. Or if they roll high and somebody got a 12 and I got a 12, which is usually in my version, good things, maybe that good thing happens to that person and I can target the player that matched me with whatever it was. But they'll never know. Wherever they're traveling through, maybe it's a mountain range full of bandits or a jungle full of creatures or the plane of fire, wherever this location is, you can change these D12 encounter dice down to a D10 or a D8 or a D4 even, and that's going to increase the chance that they have to match you. Because let's say there's 4 players rolling a D12 and you're rolling a D12, it's most likely not going to hit your number. Now, I know I'm a math teacher, but I have not done the math because it gets really weird when it comes to all of this kind of stuff. But it's about a 30% chance that they have to have a random encounter, which feels pretty good for me. And this system has so many different knobs and levers that you can change. You can increase or even decrease the amount of times that happens. So here's some examples. The first one here I've already talked about is the lower the size of the dice that everyone's rolling. If they're going through a jungle that's super dangerous, maybe I'll have them roll a D8 encounter check. Or a second variable you can change is have the players roll more or less dice. Maybe you have a skill challenge of some kind, a 1-round skill challenge. I have a whole video on that. I love 1-round skill challenges. You have a group stealth check you make or a 1-round skill challenge, and depending on who fails, if they fail, they roll 2 dice, or if they succeed, they roll no dice. So if everyone succeeds, there's 0% chance because nobody's rolling any D12s. Or if they all fail, oh man, now they're rolling 2, 4, 6, 8 D12s and see if they match yours. So now this gives one more layer to you as a dungeon master to be able to have a random encounters trigger or not. So you don't feel so bad whenever you really don't want there to be a random encounter and the paladin and the clunky armor fails the stealth check miserably. Instead of, well, here we go. Here's an encounter that I didn't want to do. At least now there's a chance to see, let the dice tell the story. Or not, but we'll get to that here in a second. The third thing you can do to change the variables is you as the dungeon master roll more D12s. How I've done this before, and let me say this, I've used all of these methods. I use all 3 of these things, changing the dice, and it's just whatever makes sense in the moment. I've had players travel through multiple stages of the journey, and as bad things happened, or as they passed up things, or as time went on, or as they got closer to the end, I'm adding more and more D12. Sometimes I let them know, and so I have a little jar and I start throwing D12s in there. And when they know when I make an encounter check, check, I'm rolling them all. But there's different things you can do to add that tension. Now I'm gonna go on a couple mini rants here to let you see why the system really shines, and there's so many different things you can do and empower you as a dungeon master when it comes to random roll tables. So long rests inside of a dungeon upset you, dungeon masters? You can have them roll a d4 for that encounter check. You're like, okay, you're gonna take a long rest in the, all right, everybody make a d4 encounter check. Whoa, really, wait, it's a, hey, maybe we don't do, and like, maybe they change their minds, or if you run a roll as a dungeon master, if they already said they did, roll those d4s. And then that's gonna heavily increase the chance, and then the players know, and they feel the described sense of danger matches up to the literal dice, increasing the percentage chance. And this is the full spectrum. If they're traveling through a completely non-hostile area, of course, you don't even have to ask for an encounter check. Or if it's just kind of what you want to see what's going on here, spice things up, ask them for it. Just each little section of travel. Again, I already talked about that in the last video, but you can control this. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you really want there to be a random encounter or a very high chance for it. You have plenty of dice and plenty of levers to be able to change. This next point here is a little bit of a hot topic, but I gotta say it, is your dice that you roll for that random encounter check is behind a giant screen and they have no idea what it is. You see where I'm going with this? If you roll whatever you roll and somebody matches you, you don't have to say it if you don't want there to be a random encounter. So the reason why I think this is important, I talked about in the last video, is I want to empower and give dungeon masters control over the random encounters. And if you just have it happen and it's really a time that you just really didn't want to have it happen, maybe the players are in the perfect spot before the fight they're about to go to. Maybe you're about to run out of game time and people having to go, they're looking at their phones and you want them to get to the next spot so you can end on a big, huge cliffhanger instead of some random encounter. Now, overall, my solution for this would be just don't ask for the roll in the first place, because then that just feels bad. Why'd you even ask him for the roll? But there is one thing to play devil's advocate there. If you ask for encounter checks, it does add to some sort of tension and stakes so that they're going from here to here. They're all really low health and they just got to make it back. If they can make it back, then they're okay. But you can ask for that random encounter check, see what happens. And then as you're describing that travel back to town, it's going to be a lot more intense. Players may be on the edge of their seats compared to if you just had said, oh, you make it back. That might feel a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But this connects perfectly into my next tip here, because I've done this a whole lot before, is I will roll that encounter dice in front of the screen. Not all the time, but I will do it to just really hammer in that big tension moment. Again, another way to build tension is, first of all, let all the players roll their D12 or whatever the dice is, however dangerous it is. They all roll it. They know what numbers that can't be hit or what numbers that would match if I roll it. As soon as I roll it, this is just such a cool moment at the table. Guys, you've got to try it. Is I roll that D12 and let's say I get a 7. Now there's 4 different people checking to see if it matches theirs. And now they're checking to see if it matches the other ones. Oh, and it either did or didn't. And I've also had it where we're in a D4 situation, and that kind of like the moment I described. They're in one place. They got to get home. They're so close. They're all really messed up. They really don't want a random encounter. They're in a dangerous location. Everybody rolls a D4. I had 4 players roll a D4. They hit a 1, 2, and a 4. 3 was the only number they didn't hit. So if I rolled a 3, they were safe. If I rolled a 1, 2, or a 4, it was a random encounter. Everyone was literally out of their seats as I stand up and roll that D4 in front of the middle of the table. And sure enough, it was a 3, but man, was that exciting. Or like I just talked about before, again, I'm trying to show the big picture of all the possibilities here. That same scenario, if I roll a 3, oh my God, I could roll that behind the screen. They have no idea. And now I'm describing things that happen. And they're just waiting for something to jump out at them, or they get home safe. And then you finally describe their carriage rolling through the gates and they're good. Or are they? Because another thing I want to throw into this is they never know what happens or if they matched. Like the same point I said about you're rolling behind the screen. They don't know if they even got a random encounter or not. I've had random encounters happen on my random encounter chart that the encounter was that an assassin is now following one of the party members. In this specific instance, if I remember correctly, on my encounter table, a 2 meant an assassin of some kind is starting to follow a party member. And it actually played into the story because they had just left a town where there was an assassin's guild. So I was like, okay, cool. It's going to be an assassin from them. Again, building it, customizing encounter tables to fit what makes sense. And the player that I matched also rolled a 2, so that was the person that they were targeting. So maybe in that big hype example where I roll it behind the scenes and they were really low and they just tried to get to town, maybe an encounter did happen. Maybe it did happen and it was an assassin who's now waiting for a moment in their weakened, fragile state to strike. They'll never know. Hold up, I just had this thought. What if the players match each other? I've never thought about this. I'm in the middle of filming this video. I just had this thought. What if the players match each other? What could you do with that? Maybe it's bad and the encounter that happens to both of them now. Or maybe it's good and there's an encounter that happens with the number that they rolled together. I don't know. Comment down below what would happen if your players matched each other. Maybe matching numbers of 1 through 6 or something bad happens between them, and 7 through 12 would be a good thing. I don't know. Literally just thought of it. But if you like this random flowing of ideas that I'm throwing at you guys, seeing what you like, seeing what you don't like, maybe you liked half of the things that I said here, but at least it's going to improve your game in some way, which is the entire point of Alkander's Almanac. This system is going to be in that book along with a lot of other things. The better these videos do, and I'm giving these certain systems from Alkander's Almanac, I want to make more of these. I want to share so many. Alkander's Almanac means so much to me as a resource, as a book, even just the lore behind Alkander, the character that I made up in the first place. That's a long story there. But I want to share this stuff with you guys. So if you like this video, share it around. I'll make more of these things and let me know what different systems out there. I'm going to try and do the full spectrum here. At least once a month, I'm going to try and make a video having to do something with Alkander's Almanac so you can see more things and inspire more stuff for your game. Stay tuned to some big things I have going on this channel. I'm doing an entire Patreon overhaul in the month of September. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm trying to give even more value than I ever have before to you guys because I feel blown away, honestly, by the amount of support that I get. Everything from the Kickstarter and all the people who backed it, my patrons who support me every single month, you guys that watch these videos, that turn on the notification bell to be alerted to jump on. The videos have, honestly, about 2 months ago, the videos were kind of really slowing down and it wasn't looking too good, but I'm trying to shake some things up and make things that you guys want to see, and I really love to see the response. I started this DC breakdowns from all the different stuff I do, the gameplay stuff. Y'all really like that. I'm gonna do a ton more of those. I absolutely love making those. So anyway, until next time, stay creative and think outside that box. Peace.